If you see a brown shriveled leaf falling off a plant in your garden, your first instinct is probably panic.
Oh, absolute panic.
Right. You immediately assume you've done something terribly wrong. You reach for the watering can, you try to save it.
Yeah, you think it's a symptom of failure.
Exactly. But what if that dying brown leaf isn't a failure at all? What if it's actually the exhaust of a perfectly engineered, just ruthless biological machine operating exactly as intended?
That is the big question for today.
It is. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at something incredibly specific, yet universally revealing about how we interact with the natural world.
Yeah, it really changes your perspective.
Our single source for you today is this fascinating excerpt from a gardening journal. It's titled Cultivating and Pruning the Screw Pine, Notes on Gardening. And we're specifically looking at part 940, written by an author named Ang.
And honestly, the mere fact that we are looking at part 940 should tip you off to the level of observation we're dealing with here.
I mean, 940 parts.
Right. The author is just meticulously documenting these microdramas happening right under our noses in the soil.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is to explore this hidden drama of plant life cycles. We're going to look at how a plant's environment entirely dictates the difference between it merely surviving in the wild and thriving as a curated decorative piece.
Because Ang's notes introduce us to the screw pine, also known as the pandanus, and they present this strange, almost funny contradiction.
Yes, the paradox.
Right. It's celebrated as a totally low-maintenance plant, but simultaneously requires highly deliberate human intervention to actually look the way we expect it to.
That tension between natural biology and, human expectation is the core of this whole discussion.
It really is. And to really grasp it, we have to start with the biomechanics of how the screw pine actually moves through the world.
Okay, lay it on me.
So Ang directs our attention to a specific photograph of one of these plants and highlights a very distinct visual phenomenon. The bottom of the plant is actively shedding its leaves in mass quantities.
Which, again, goes back to that initial panic we talked about.
Right.
To a novice gardener, seeing a plant drop a massive amount of foliage from its base looks like a complete death spiral.
It looks catastrophic. I mean, it looks like you killed it.
Right.
But Ang clarifies that this shedding is a fundamental, non-negotiable part of its natural growth cycle. The screw pine operates on a very specific upward trajectory.
It wants to go up.
Exactly. It's constantly pushing out brand new foliage at the very top of its structure. And because all of the organism's biological energy is being violently directed upward into that new canopy.
Older leaves down at the base are just naturally left behind?
Yes. They age out, they turn brown, and eventually they drop.
When I was reading Ang's notes, the only thing I could think of was a rocket ship launching into space.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, think about it. You have this massive rocket, and to break through the atmosphere, it relies on these gigantic booster stages at the bottom.
Right, the heavy lifters.
Exactly. Those boosters do all the heavy lifting early on, but once they expend their fuel, once they've served their purpose of getting the ship to a certain altitude, they just become dead weight.
They're a liability at that point.
Totally. The main capsule can't keep carrying them if it wants to keep pushing outward, so it literally ejects them. It sheds the older, spent boosters at the bottom so the top can keep climbing.
That analogy actually works perfectly if you take it one step further into the mechanics.
Oh, how so?
Imagine if, before that rocket ship ejected the empty booster stage, the main cabin sucked every last drop of usable copper wire, scrap metal, and residual fuel out of it first.
Oh, wow. So a complete salvage operation.
Precisely that. The
Yeah.
plant is constantly abandoning its past to fund its future.
That is so ruthless.
It is. Those bottom leaves were the original solar panels that gave the plant the energy to grow tall in the first place. But once the new canopy takes over, maintaining those old leaves becomes biologically inefficient.
So it cuts them off.
Well, it drains them first. So the plant deliberately reabsorbs all the mobile nutrients from those lower leaves. The nitrogen, the magnesium pulling them back into the main stem to send up to the top.
Wait, really? It pulls the nutrients backward.
Yes. That total extraction is actually why the leaves turn brown.
Oh, I see.
The brown color isn't just death. It's the visual evidence of a successful salvage mission.
That completely reframes the whole process for me. The brown leaf is basically an empty wrapper.
Exactly. But Ang's notes take a sharp turn here.
Right, because there's a second reason they fall off.
Yes. The author introduces a critical environmental factor that adds a whole new layer to why these leaves drop. Beyond just natural synchronized aging, there's another cause, a severe lack of sunlight.
Okay, so an environmental failure rather than a natural progression.
Yes, exactly. When the base of the plant doesn't receive adequate sunlight, the biological machinery inside those lower leaves completely stalls out.
Because they can't do their job anymore.
Right. The leaves rely on sunlight to synthesize chlorophyll. That's the pigment that makes them green and handles photosynthesis.
Wow.
When the sun vanishes, chlorophyll production stops.
And the existing green pigment just degrades and fades away.
You got it.
And when the green fades, it unmasks the underlying pigments, right?
Yeah.
Which explains the detail in the text that absolutely blew my mind.
The color coding.
Yes. Aang makes this incredibly subtle but vital distinction in the color of the shedding leaves.
It's brilliant.
If it's natural aging, the rocket ship stripping its boosters of nutrients, the leaves turn brown. But if it's an environmental failure, a lack of photosynthesis because of poor sunlight, they turn yellow.
It's essentially a botanical diagnostic tool. The plant is physically broadcasting its internal status.
It's a built-in dashboard warning light.
It really is.
As a gardener, you don't even have to guess. You can literally diagnose the structural health of the organism just by looking at the specific color of the dying foliage.
Yep. Brown means system operating normally, salvage complete.
And yellow means system failure, check engine, photosynthesis interrupted.
Exactly. And learning to read that specific color-coded diagnosis is what leads Aang to analyze the specific, struggling plant shown in the journal's photograph.
Right, the sick one.
Yes. The author points out that the plant in the picture is not just going through a healthy rocket ship phase, it is actively suffering. And the culprit is its placement.
Because it's been planted in a shady microclimate.
Right.
Let's define that really quickly, just for everyone listening, because a microclimate is such a fascinating variable.
It's huge in gardening.
We usually think of our entire yard as having one single weather pattern, like it's sunny today or it's rainy.
But a microclimate is a tiny, localized zone where the conditions differ drastically from the surrounding area.
Exactly. You could have a baking hot, dry desert on the south side of a brick wall, and just, I don't know, 3 feet away, under the canopy of an old tree, you have a cool, damp, shady microclimate.
And this specific screw pine in the photo happens to be stuck in one of those shady pockets.
Which is causing the problem.
Right. Aang notes that this shady microclimate is entirely preventing the plant's optimal growth.
Okay, so let me challenge this premise for a second.
Okay, go for it.
Because I was reading this and trying to follow the biological math, right? If the whole point of the screw pine's natural growth cycle is to shed its bottom leaves anyway, if it actively wants to drop the booster stages to grow taller, then isn't a shady microclimate actually kind of helpful?
Oh, I see where you're going.
Right. If the shade blocks the sun and the lack of sun kills the bottom leaves, isn't the environment just doing the plant's job for it? It feels like an accelerated shortcut. Why is Aang calling this a problem?
What's fascinating here is the massive difference between an organism's natural, synchronized progression and forced environmental starvation.
Forced starvation.
Okay, your logic makes sense on a surface level, sure, but it completely ignores the plant's internal energy economy.
Oh, right. The salvage operation we talked about earlier.
Exactly that. When the plant naturally ages and turns those bottom leaves brown, it does so on its own strict schedule.
It's in control.
Right. It drops them only after it has successfully extracted every last bit of useful nutrient. And crucially, only after the new canopy at the top is fully established and capable of sustaining the entire organism.
Ah, it's a highly controlled transition of power.
Yes.
So it's passing the baton only when the next runner is fully up to speed.
That's a great way to put it. But when you place the plant in a shady microclimate, you violently interrupt that schedule. The environment prematurely robs those bottom leaves of their sunlight before the plant is ready to lose them.
So it panics.
Well, biologically, yes. Because the light is gone, the chlorophyll degrades, the leaf turns yellow, and it dies rapidly. The plant simply hasn't had the time to extract the stored nutrients.
Oh, wow.
Plus, the top canopy might not be large enough yet to carry the entire energy burden of the organism.
So instead of a helpful shedding, it's literally a forced starvation.
Yeah.
It's robbing the plant's bank account before the funds can be transferred.
The shade isn't helping the plant shed. It is suffocating the foundation before the penthouse is even built.
That's incredibly tragic when you frame it like that.
It is. The plant is losing its solar panels while it still desperately needs the power.
It completely undermines the foundation of the plant. It really makes you realize how high the stakes are when you're just, wandering around your yard with a shovel deciding where to dig a hole.
Oh, the stakes are huge.
2 feet to the left into the sun, and the plant executes its perfect rocket launch. 2 feet to the right into a shady microclimate, and you are slowly starving it to death.
It's tragic, yes. But it also leads directly into a profound irony in Eng's notes.
The gardening paradox.
Yes, the realization that the plant's environment is working against its optimal form introduces a fascinating contradiction in how we, as humans, categorize and sell hardy plants.
Right, the paradox of the low-maintenance plant. Because in the text, Eng explicitly describes the screw pine as an incredibly hardy specimen.
Very hardy.
It's highly drought-tolerant. The author specifically writes that it requires little to no maintenance. Naturally, as a reader or a buyer at a nursery, you hear that and think, fantastic, I can plant this thing in the dirt, ignore it, go on a month-long vacation, and it will be totally fine.
And, well, from a strictly biological standpoint, that assumption is actually correct.
It is.
Yeah. If you abandon it, the plant will endure. Its drought tolerance guarantees its survival against brutal conditions. It simply refuses to die easily.
In the exact same breath, Eng insists that if you want to use the screw pine as a decorative garden plant, you must actively intervene.
You have to step in.
You have to get in there with shears and deliberately prune and trim those bottom leaves to ensure it is shaped correctly and that it continues to grow upward in a visually pleasing way.
Right.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. It completely shatters the illusion of the effortless garden. The only thing I could compare it to is the fashion concept of bedhead hair.
Oh, the bedhead botanical. Okay, paint that picture for me.
Think about it. Your hair naturally grows out of your head. If you do absolutely nothing to it, zero maintenance, zero styling, it will survive.
It will grow.
It will just be a wild, tangled, chaotic mess on top of your head. But occasionally you see a model in a magazine sporting this perfect, tousled, I just woke up like this messy look.
Right, the effortlessly cool vibe.
Exactly. It looks completely natural and effortless. But if you actually sit down with a stylist, they will tell you that achieving that perfect, effortless look requires a ridiculous amount of highly deliberate intervention.
Oh, yeah, it's a ton of work.
It takes texturizing spray, pomade, specific layered cutting, and an hour of active styling. The hair naturally grows one way, but for it to look like a purposeful, stylish mess for a photo shoot, it requires constant human engineering.
It captures the contradiction beautifully.
Doesn't it?
The screw pine is biologically tough enough to survive without you, but surviving usually looks messy.
Right. If you want it to look correct as a striking architectural centerpiece in your yard, you can't just let it be a tangled heap of half-dead brown and yellow leaves.
You have to put in the work.
You have to play the stylist and prune it.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what Eng is really outlining here is the profound philosophical gap between agricultural survival and decorative gardening.
They are completely different things.
It's a distinction that frustrates so many people who try to curate a landscape. We constantly conflate a plant's biological hardiness with its aesthetic presentation.
We assume hardiness means it will always look pretty.
Exactly. The screw pine's biological machinery, its thick leaves, its drought tolerance, ensures it won't die from a little neglect. In the wild, nature doesn't care if a plant looks unkempt at the base.
Nature doesn't care about curb appeal.
No, not at all. Nature's only metric for success is the continuation of the species. But a garden is an entirely human construct.
It's artificial.
It is an aesthetic endeavor, an artificial theater. We demand that the plant not only survive, but that it conforms to our highly specific visual standards of what a proper shape is.
And according to Eng, the proper shape for a decorative screw pine is that clean upward trajectory. We want the clean rocket ship.
Yes.
We don't want to see the messy booster stages hanging around, cluttering up the view.
And human pruning is the artificial mechanism that bridges the gap between the plant's wild survival instinct and our aesthetic demands.
That makes totally sense.
In fact, Eng cites this exact lack of proper pruning as the second major reason why the plant in the photograph is struggling aesthetically.
Oh, right. Back to the sick plant.
Yeah. It's suffering internally from the shady microclimate robbing its energy, but it's also failing visually because no human has stepped in to trim those dying bottom leaves away to shape it correctly.
It's trapped in a bizarre botanical limbo.
It really is.
It's in the wrong environment to thrive naturally, and it's being entirely denied the human styling it needs to succeed artificially. It's a double whammy for this poor plant.
It highlights the immense responsibility we take on when we bring a wild organism into a curated space. We can't just rely on a label that says hardy and expect aesthetic perfection.
Right. We are forcing it to act as decor, which makes us active, necessary participants in its life cycle. Let's take a step back and look at the sheer amount of insight we've pulled from this one short journal entry today.
It's packed with information.
We started with the striking visual of a plant naturally shedding its leaves, pushing upward like a rocket ship, meticulously salvaging its nutrients and leaving a trail of naturally aging brown leaves behind.
The successful salvage mission.
Exactly. Then we explored the mechanics of environmental failure, learning that a lack of sunlight in a shady microclimate prematurely starves those bottom leaves.
Breaking down their chlorophyll.
Right, turning them an alarming yellow and completely disrupting the plant's energy economy.
And finally, we confronted the ultimate gardener's paradox.
The bedhead botanical. The fact that a plant can be biologically maintenance-free when it comes to raw survival, but still require intense, deliberate human styling if we expect it to conform to our decorative ideals.
The density of observation in Ang's notes is just remarkable. And for you listening, the real takeaway here isn't just about how to prune a screw pine.
No, it's bigger than that.
It's about how to observe the systems around you. This deep dive reveals that reading an environment isn't about looking at the broad, sweeping strokes. It's about paying fierce attention to the minutiae.
The little details.
Closely observing something as seemingly insignificant as whether a dropping leaf is brown or yellow provides you with a profound diagnostic tool.
It tells you instantly whether a system is naturally and healthily progressing through its life cycle, or if it is actively failing due to external pressures.
It's about learning to read the dashboard of nature.
Learning to read the dashboard. Because nature is constantly broadcasting its status to us. We just have to bother to learn the language. It makes you want to walk outside right now and just stare at the base of every plant in the yard, looking for yellow leaves versus brown leaves.
It certainly changes the lens through which you view a weekend gardening chore. But before we wrap up today, this raises an important question.
Okay.
Something I want to leave you to mull over.
Oh, I love these. What's the final thought?
We spent a considerable amount of time discussing Ang's observation that the bottom leaves lose their ability to photosynthesize and turn yellow when they're deprived of sunlight.
Right.
And we naturally blamed the shady microclimate, an overhanging oak tree, a nearby fence, an external factor.
The environment forcing the starvation.
But think about the natural growth cycle we described. The screw pine continuously grows upward, pushing out a massive, thick canopy of brand new foliage at the very top.
Yeah, the umbrella.
If that top canopy becomes dense enough and wide enough as the plant matures, isn't the plant intentionally creating its own shady microclimate for its bottom leaves?
Wait, oh my gosh.
Is the plant an unwitting victim of its environment? Or is it a master architect of its own shedding?
It's blocking its own sun.
Perhaps the screw pine is purposefully starving its own base of sunlight. By building a massive umbrella at the top, it guarantees that the bottom leaves will lose their light, turn yellow, and drop.
That is insane.
It is naturally internally forcing the pruning process to rid itself of inefficient leaves. Think about it. Minimizing the amount of foliage it needs to hydrate would allow it to survive droughts far more efficiently.
So it's a feature, not a bug.
It might just be the ultimate survival strategy, creating the very conditions that force the shedding.
The plant is its own shady microclimate that completely flips the entire dynamic on its head. Are we pruning it, or is it pruning itself by using the sun as a weapon against its own biology?
It's quite the thought experiment.
That is absolutely wild and slightly terrifying. Well, that is definitely a thought to chew on the next time you're out weeding the flower beds and wondering who is really in control. We want to warmly thank you for joining us on this deep dive today. It has been such a blast unpacking this. Keep observing, keep questioning the seemingly effortless things around you, and keep looking for those hidden stories right there in your own backyard.